This is the last session. And we're talking about phases. Phases of parenting. What to do at what age group? What to do specifically at what age group? You can come take a picture of the notes. Maybe if you've got a WhatsApp group, you can take a picture and you can put it on the WhatsApp group, because you'll be sharing quite a little bit of information. And I don't want to spend, because I can see we're tired, so I don't want to expand on every point. I'm going to expand here and there, otherwise it's going to take just too much time. Wie's brainfoos? Yeah, some of us, I can see like, bleh. All right, but I think this is very important stuff. So this is, are we all back? Are they back? Yes. A heart approach is basically, what should my heart and behavior approach be at a certain age group? We call it phases. So you agree with me, I can't treat an 11-year-old the same as I would treat a 14-year-old, or an 11-year-old as I would treat a 6-year-old. You have to adapt your approach, your heart's attitude towards that various age or that age group. So your approach has to change. All right. So the first phase is called a nurturing phase. And that's from 0 to 18 months. In Afrikaans, 'n vertroetelende hart. 0 to 18 months, you must be very vertroetelend, very nurturing. The characteristics of this phase is excessive love. Not that you can ever excessively love, but lots of loving, lots of patience. So, Francois, you and your wife have to have lots of love, lots of patience. The child is an empty computer. They don't know anything. You cannot, the biggest mistake we make is to afford the child the consequences of their behavior when they don't know what their behavior should be. So I'm like my daughter accidentally did with her 11-year-old month child, wanting him to behave, but actually she's appropriating 7-year-old consequences to 11-month-old child. That doesn't work. I made that mistake as well until the Lord spoke to me and said, you better. So my dad spoke to me and said, whoa, you're far too strict. You need to relax. Your boy doesn't know. You know, you expect him. You think he knows. No, he doesn't. You know, so loving, patient, caring, massive. 0 to 18 months, the nurturing heart has to be caring. Lots of physical touch and cuddling. You need to be panda bear with that little child. Massively. Then 18 months to 3 years, you need to start becoming commanding. Because now this little one understands enough, and just as our sinful nature does, they have been so loved, so goo goo gaga. Everybody thinks they are God's gift to mankind, including yourself. And that's right. They must feel that. And it should continue. But now we need to put parameters. Otherwise, we're going to bring up spoiled brats, which will mess up their lives and mess up your grandchildren's lives and your great-grandchildren. So now it needs to be a commanding heart, a bevel's heart. You need to put in strict boundaries. At 18 months to 3 years, strict boundaries, establishing your authority. No is no. And yes is yes. You need to control the environment. That child doesn't know walking to the fire they're going to burn. Unfortunately, it's probably, you're on duty 24/7, basically. And there you need community like never before, actually. You need people to watch out for kids with you. The family, the Christian community, your own biological family, to look out. Because if you just turn your head, that little boy or little girl walks to a fire and steps on a little coal that's fallen off the fire and burns their feet. And unfortunately, sometimes we let our guard down and our kids get hurt, or the kid just picks up something that he shouldn't be eating or she shouldn't be eating. But you need to be like really on your, and that's where you need people. You need family around us. You need to control the environment. You need to control the friends. So your little 18-month-old or 17 might be playing with another child, and this child loves slapping. You need to take your child away from the little child that's slapping to protect your little child, control the environment. Be careful, they need to be far away from swimming pools that are open. You can't just all the time. I mean, until your child can swim properly, one of the most dangerous places to be is to be with friends with an open pool. We've had a second case in a year and a half of a child drowning in Joshgen. It happened 3 weeks ago again. So so because of that, us and our kids' parents-in-law, my daughter's parents-in-law, have paid for swimming lessons. So every Friday, either my son-in-law or my daughter go with their little baby, 11 months old, and they do swimming lessons. So that child knows how to defend themselves swimming. I mean, it's like with the amount of pools in this country that are not covered, it's shocking. You don't want that, please, to happen to you. And I think many of us know people with whom that's happened. That is horrific. In any case, so control the environment, friends, little freedom, few choices. 18 months to 3 years old, little freedom. You can't ask your child at the age of 2.5 or 3, would you like an apple or an ice cream? What would you like? Have you seen parents do that? It's crazy. You decide for the child. The child will always take the wrong thing. You tell, no, you're going to have an apple. Ice cream is not now. You decide for the child, please. What did Nadine call it? What's it called? What parenting? Liberal parenting? Positive parenting. That child cannot, it is liberal parenting. That child cannot make that decision for her or himself. Then 3 to 6 year old, commanding heart continues. It's still commanding. The difference is you need to adapt the two previous phases. You need to give now opportunities for the child to be creative. So 3 to 6, that's when you sit in a pile of mud and you play with mud. You can wash the clothes. The child needs to experience Vaseline on their skin. They need to experience cream. They need to jump on or play in a jungle gym. What do you call these? And you need to be right there to catch them, to help them. Let them take little steps of risk, but with you being around them, helping them, protecting them from the risks. But they need to take those little daring steps of adventure, step out. Give them opportunities to be creative. Give them a big piece of paper and let them just scribble on it. Even though it doesn't, and you praise them. It's well done. You at least creating something that nobody understands, but we enjoy it with you. One of our kids drew on the wall because we didn't put out a boundary. We let them draw on papers and make, and then I don't know, it was our son or our daughter drew on the whole passage wall. And then now, should I discipline that child? You naughty child, why did you do that? Should I discipline that child? No. You must discipline you. You should have said to the child, don't draw on the wall. And you need to repeat that a few times, because how long is a memory of a child? And we had an ADD boy. You tell him something and he says, yes, Daddy, turns around, he's forgotten about it. And how many times did I give him a hiding? I had to repent. I had to go before God and weep. God, what have I done to my child? Forgive me, Daddy. And when our son went off the road, I felt so guilty. Oh, God, this is my fault. And a lead elder from another church phoned me out of the blue and he said, God told me to tell you it's not your fault. You know how liberating that was? Boom. I don't want to cry now. We judge ourselves often too harshly as parents. We want to be perfect parents. You are never going to be perfect. Accept that. Because if you were perfect, your child would worship you. You have to be imperfect. Frederica, can't say Fred. Fred is a male's name. Frederica. Or Fred. I'll get used to it. You cannot be perfect. God doesn't want you to be perfect. He wants them to need Him. He wants them to run to Him. So, forgive yourself. Who here needs to forgive themselves? And with that, you need to forgive your own parents. My daughter looks at us with new Goo Gaga eyes. Now that she's had to bring up an 11-month-old, she says, how did you do it? What sacrifice have you made? He said, you know what? We don't know how we did it. We got through it by the grace of God. It's like a blur. If I think of those months, it's a blur. God's grace. Francois and you guys, it's going to be a blur. But God's grace carries you now. You'll get through it. So this is the commanding, permit appropriate choices between 3 and 6. Do permit choices. Okay, do you want an apple or a banana? They're both healthy. I want a banana. It's fine. It's an appropriate choice. Teach them to make decisions, but don't let them make decisions that you know are going to be harmful. All right. The next phase is 6 to 10 years old is a shaping heart, a form in the heart. The heart you must have towards them, and the treatment and the behavior towards them must be shaping in its nature. It needs to shape them. It needs to form them as a form in the heart. You need to, in this phase, you need to allow the child to carry the consequences of their choices. 6 to 10 years old. Okay, for example, if you finish the dishes before we must leave, we can watch your favorite cartoon before bedtime. If you don't finish washing the dishes, now obviously you're not going to give them 10 dishes, 3 dishes, whatever their little section. If you finish washing these dishes or packing them away, not only washing, packing them away, say they're 8 or 9 years old, if you do it, if you don't finish it, you're going to have to skip the cartoon that your brother and sister will watch until you finish them. So it's your choice. Are you going to focus and work hard to finish packing away the dishes or washing them? Then we can all watch cartoons together. Otherwise, your brother and sister have finished. They can watch the cartoon. You're not able. You have to finish the dishes after we get back. But finish them before we leave because we have an appointment. You understand? They need to make choices. They need to understand the consequences. It's not a punishment, just a consequence. Not punishing you. This is the dishes have to be done. And this is the consequence of if you don't wash the dishes. Now, the extreme boundaries that you had from ages 0 to 6, you need to maybe lessen that. Because unless you lessen the boundaries, how will they learn the consequences of their decisions? All right, so for example, you know what? If you spend all your money, so you must tell them, you got given money. So I would encourage you to use this money for the Super Tube because it's actually meant for the Super Tube. But your child loves McDonald's, but they don't have enough money for McDonald's and Super Tube. So you say, okay, if you spend all your money on McDonald's, we'll be Super Tubing, but you won't be able to Super Tube. But it's your decision. And they have to decide. And if they eat the McDonald's and they can't Super Tube, you don't bail them out. You're not teaching them consequences. They need to learn consequences of boundaries that have been relaxed. In the past, if they were younger than 6 or 6 and younger, you say, this money is for Super Tube, not McDonald's. Now they're 6 to 10, okay, McDonald's or Super Tube, but if you eat McDonald's, we're going to eat, we have a meal. It's not like there isn't food. There is food that mommy's prepared. But if you prefer a McDonald's, you're going to have to forfeit the Super Tube. Makes sense, eh? All right. So, help them with prevention, identification, and solution of problems. I'll just give you an example. I'm trying to prevent them. I'm trying to get them to identify the challenge and the solution of the problem. If they choose not to follow my advice, they will bed. If you bail them out, they learn nothing. And I know it's hard. I mean, they're only 8 years or 9 years old. You know, we feel sorry for them. Don't. You do them more harm unless they learn the consequences. There's nothing that teaches you more patience than parenting. I'm telling you, it is. You die to self. You learn the father heart of love of God through parenting like nothing else, I believe. It is like the amount of grace God has for me, I must somehow have it for my children. The patience that God has for me, I must have it. Then the next phase is called the combination phase. And that's 11 to 18 years old. It's a combination of the previous phases. So it's a combination of the nurturing, the commanding, the shaping, and what gets added now in the combination phase is an encouraging heart. All right. So it's 11 to 18. The combination, you add encouraging to nurturing, commanding, shaping. 11 to 18 years old. You need to permit more freedom in choices now, more than you did until the age of 10. So they need to have more freedom in their choices and to bear the consequences of those choices. Boundaries are flexible. Not all boundaries, but there are more flexible boundaries. You need to learn, permit the children to learn from their own mistakes. And then, very importantly, you need to discuss logical and real consequences with them. Am I going too fast? The notes, you'll take pictures of it. They need to learn the consequences and they need to understand the logic behind. I think he just mentioned to me, Ernst, must he tell the child, no matter if they can understand, can he tell them the consequences of why, or telling them, this is the reason I'm telling you this? How will your child learn to process and fathom consequences unless they get told by their parent? Because they don't have the maturity to see that if they keep eating ice cream for a month every day, they're going to roll out of the car. And they're going to become unhealthy and a whole lot of things. Their consequences are going to be severe. Unless you as a parent tell them. They have no knowledge that they are not at your knowledge or your maturity or your understanding of consequence level. No way. And our biggest mistake, once again, is to give them that, to think, to presume they have that knowledge, that understanding. They don't. You need to, that's why, patience. Tell them the ABCs of why you're saying. Tell them why you're saying what you're saying. You need to train, coach, and mentor your child at this stage. 11 to 18. Train them, mentor them, and coach them. And then when you see behavior, you need to lovingly give them advice. So if you see your daughter likes this one guy, we had a rule, and I'm not ashamed of it. We indoctrinated our kids from little ages that while at school you can have no romantic relationship. We said from 5-4, no boyfriend and girlfriends at school while you're at school, and the reason is we just think emotionally they're not mature enough. I know some of us have allowed our kids, and God has. Some of you married here today are high school sweethearts, and it's worked out well. But we just felt there's no ways. I think you two are high school, eh? We just felt from our perspective, just for safety's sake, there's no going out after school. Yes, with our input, yes, you can. But before school or while in school, it's preferable you don't do that. So, but now, for example, your daughter's at a matric dance, and there's a guy that she likes, but he keeps asking another girl to dance, and he doesn't even notice her. And they actually are befriended. They know each other, and I can see your daughter getting upset. You're at this dance, you're watching your daughter cringe, she's hurting, and the girl the guy that she likes walks up to her, and you see your daughter like really batter. You can see it in the body language. Do you leave that? You go to her, you say, I know you're hurting. I know you'd like him to ask you to dance. Doesn't mean he's going to go out with her. You just want to have some time with this guy that she's likes a lot. And now she's betting the girl that he's chosen above her. This is time when you go and you advise her. You've observed her behavior. You've seen her pain. You've seen her rejection. And you go to her and you say to her, listen, I know you're hurting. I know you feel rejected. So don't just come with advice without putting your feet in the shoes of your child. trying to put your mind at the level where they're at. Not coming top down, coming at their level and trying to live out as much as it. And with the Holy Spirit's help, you'll be able to identify because you've gone through the same stuff. Am I right? We were also children. I think our most clearest memories are of our first 18 to 22 years old. We don't forget that stuff. Am I right? We remember. Those are traumatic and very joyous moments. I mean, from 30 to 50 is like misty to me. I mean, life just went on. There are a few things around. The rest, I don't know about the rest of you. I mean, but up to 30, I'm like, those are impressionable times. So you will be able to identify at your child's level and to give them advice by observing their behavior. And then give advice by asking leading questions. So, Samantha, I saw Peter kept asking Susan to dance. Was it hard to see that? Oh, Daddy, it's terrible. And I saw you're a bit iffy with Susan. Why? Because she got attention and I never did. Okay, then you advise her. And you know, I understand you got rejected. I understand you got hurt. Okay, next phase is the last phase. And that's 19 years and older. And it's called the encouraging phase, the encouraging heart, bemoedigende hart. Now you only give advice if you're asked. 19 and older, you don't tell it. You don't say it. My son had to challenge me on that. Because I want the best for him. And always giving him advice. He was then, I think, 22, 23. And I would tell him, but he at that stage, he's come back radically to Christ. But at that stage, he'd wandered off the road completely. And we were praying like crazy. It was a very hard time. For 7 years, we were weeping like crazy for our son's back return to the Lord. And he did return radically. But about 22, 23 years old, he, I would see every time I give him advice, he just starts talking to someone else. He ignores me flat. Just like, and I thought, what a cheek. This child. I mean, you spawned from me. You know, like, who do you think you are, you know? Had I not brought you, you would, this is like the thoughts in my heart, you know. Julle al dit gedink, who have you thought it, who's this child think he is? I mean, my word. And so, because of all this training we've had, and we have to live an example, I asked him a leading question. I said, my boy, I see that calmly. I mean, after I calmed down, I mean, at first I exploded, but I kept that away from him. I said, I see when I talk to you, you just start talking to someone else when I want to give you advice. He says, Dad, you don't give me advice, you tell me advice. You command me. I've grown a bit, my dad. And I said, Joch, my boy, I'm so sorry. I'm going to work on that, you know. Thank you for... He says, Dad, you've made commitments in the past and you don't keep to it. And I said, will you have grace for me to work harder on it as God has grace on me and you? Will you allow me to make a few mistakes and will you have grace? He said, yes, of course, Daddy. He went away and he came back. He said, Dad, I'm so sorry I was hard on you. And he wept. He just wept. I'm so sorry I was hard on you. How dare I say to you, you will not be able to adjust. The Holy Spirit convicted him. But what amount of humble pie did I have to eat? I mean, I don't like sharing the story with you. Who are you to hear my story? But who am I not to share it with you? Do I think I'm better than you? No. I'm less than you. I want to become, like Paul says, I want to become less, the least of everybody. So we can learn from each other. And now I don't care to share it anymore. I don't mind it. There's really no pride in my heart anymore for that. I want to share it so we can learn from each other. So even with him batting me back, I came in more humble. You think that was easy, Donnie? God has made me a walkover for Him, but I generally have never been a walkover. Got a bit of oomph in me. A fight. But the fight, when it's in the flesh, it hurts. It doesn't build. Does no one good. And I've had to take more humble route. I said, my boy, will you afford me some more grace? Because I know I've not always kept my word. And I've tried, I've committed, I've repented. Who of you have sinned, repented once and never done that sin again? Please tell me. None of us. And he had to apply it to his own life. Okay. That's a lot, eh? Just enough now.